I used to think I was the most valued person at Ellison & Burke, until I spoke the truth. He laughed, denied every allegation right in front of me and the board. But he didn't know I'd been preparing for this moment. And in just one night, the company lost all 9 of their top clients. My name is Natalie Rhodes, and at 35, I'd built everything I thought I wanted. Vice President of Accounts at Ellison & Burke, one of Denver's most prestigious communications firms. Corner office on the 14th floor with a view of the Rockies. A reputation for turning impossible clients into loyal partners. I'd worked 12-hour days for 8 years to get here, sacrificing relationships, health, and countless weekends. This was supposed to be my dream. The morning it all began to unravel started like any other. I arrived at 7:15 a.m., designer coffee in hand, reviewing the Horizon Energy presentation on my phone as I walked through the gleaming lobby. The security guard nodded. He knew I was always first in, last out. That dedication had earned me 9 of the firm's biggest accounts, generating 42% of annual revenue. Rhodes, my office. Now. Craig Dawson's voice cut through the morning quiet as I passed his door. My direct supervisor, Director of Client Relations, had a way of making every summons sound like a threat. I followed him in, noting how he closed the door behind me. Never a good sign. The smell of his cologne, something expensive and suffocating, filled the space between us. The Veralux presentation needs work, he said, moving too close as he reached past me for a folder on his desk. His hand brushed my hip, not accidentally. I'll review it again, I said, stepping away, keeping my voice professional. This wasn't the first time. For months now, there'd been comments about my skirts, my assets, how I must use them to keep clients happy. Lingering touches during meetings. Text messages after hours asking what I was wearing. You know, Natalie, he said, sitting on the edge of his desk, forcing me to look up at him. You could go so much further here if you were more accommodating. I've been protecting you, keeping the partners happy with your work, but gratitude goes both ways. My stomach turned. My work speaks for itself. Craig. Does it? His smile was predatory. Pretty thing like you, clients probably sign just to keep meetings going. Take Jim Morrison at Horizon, bet he loves those tight blazers. I recorded everything on my phone, hidden in my jacket pocket. 3 months of documentation sat in an encrypted folder. Emails, texts, secretly recorded conversations, my insurance policy. Though I'd prayed I'd never need to use it. I have the morning briefing to prepare, I said, moving toward the door. Natalie. His voice stopped me. Remember who makes the decisions around here? Play nice, or find somewhere else to play. The rest of that day blurred together. Client calls where I had to pretend everything was fine. Team meetings where Craig's eyes never left my body. Bathroom breaks where I fought down nausea and rage. My assistant, Maria, noticed something was wrong, but I couldn't risk telling anyone. Not yet. That night, I sat in my empty apartment, laptop open, staring at the HR complaint form. 8 years of my life versus speaking truth. My career versus my dignity. The cursor blinked in the subject line, waiting. Outside, Denver's lights sparkled like promises or warnings. I thought about every young woman who'd mysteriously left the company, every whispered warning I'd ignored when I started. How many others had sat exactly where I was, choosing silence over uncertainty? I started typing, formal complaint, pattern of sexual harassment by Craig Dawson. My phone buzzed. A text from Craig. Great work today. Wear that blue dress tomorrow, the one from the holiday party. That's when I knew I wasn't just going to file a complaint, I was going to burn it all down. But first, I needed to be smart. Smarter than him. Smarter than the system protecting him. I closed the laptop without sending the complaint. Not yet. If Craig Dawson wanted to play games, he'd chosen the wrong opponent. I'd spent 8 years learning exactly how this company worked, where its pressure points were, who really held the power. He thought he controlled my future. He had no idea I was about to control his. 3 weeks later, I finally hit send on the complaint. 23 pages of documentation, timestamps, screenshots, and transcribed recordings. I'd followed every protocol, submitted through proper channels, even hired a lawyer to review it first. My hands shook as I watched the confirmation email arrive. Your complaint has been received by Human Resources. Within an hour, Margaret Flores from HR knocked on my office door. Natalie, we need to discuss your submission. Her face was carefully neutral, professional mask firmly in place. The conference room they chose was windowless, fluorescent lights harsh against beige walls. Margaret sat across from me with Thomas Chen, the chief legal officer, and Patricia Burnham, head of HR. Their expressions reminded me of doctors about to deliver terminal news. These are serious allegations, Patricia began, flipping through printed pages. We'll need to conduct a thorough investigation. In the meantime, we ask that you maintain complete confidentiality. Of course, I said, though something cold settled in my stomach at their tone. You'll continue your normal duties, Thomas added, but we suggest limiting interaction with Mr. Dawson to essential business only. The investigation took 2 weeks. 2 weeks of Craig's smirking face in meetings, his casual dominance even more pronounced. He knew. Of course he knew. HR had to interview him. And suddenly his behavior shifted to exaggerated professionalism, CCing others on every email, keeping doors open during our interactions. Then came the meeting that changed everything. After careful review, Patricia announced, Craig sitting beside her with mock concern on his face. We found insufficient evidence to substantiate your claims. Mr. Dawson has provided context for these interactions that suggests a misunderstanding of professional mentorship. Mentorship? The word came out strangled. Craig leaned forward, voice dripping with false sympathy. Natalie, I'm devastated you interpreted my guidance this way. I've only ever wanted to help develop your career. Perhaps the pressure of managing so many high-stakes accounts has affected your perception. I have recordings, obtained without consent. Thomas interrupted. Inadmissible and potentially illegal under Colorado law. The room spun. They'd known about the recordings all along. They'd used my own evidence against me. Furthermore, Patricia continued, several colleagues have expressed concern about your recent behavior, mood swings, paranoia, hostility toward constructive feedback. We care about your well-being, Natalie. That's when I understood. They weren't investigating Craig. They were building a case against me. However, Craig said, playing the magnanimous leader, I don't want this misunderstanding to derail a promising career. I'm willing to move forward if Natalie agrees to some adjustments. The adjustments were a masterclass in corporate retaliation disguised as support. Mandatory stress management sessions with a company-appointed therapist. A performance improvement plan despite my stellar reviews. Weekly check-ins with Craig to rebuild our professional relationship. This is retaliation, I said flatly. This is support, Patricia countered. Unless you'd prefer to explore other opportunities. I signed their papers. What choice did I have? But as I watched Craig's satisfied smile, something crystallized inside me. They thought they'd won. They thought they'd broken me. The next morning, an email waited in my inbox. Effective immediately, Natalie Rhodes is placed on administrative leave pending review of performance concerns. My badge wouldn't scan. Security watched me pack my office into boxes while my team pretended not to stare. Oversensitive. Attention-seeking. Can't handle pressure. The whispers followed me to the elevator. Craig had won this round so thoroughly that I'd become the villain in my own story. But standing in that parking garage, holding a box of 8 years' worth of achievements, I smiled. They'd made one crucial mistake. They'd left me with my phone, my contacts, and most importantly, my clients' direct numbers. Craig thought he'd destroyed me. He had no idea he'd just set me free to destroy him. I sat in my car and opened my personal email. 9 draft messages waited, each one carefully crafted over the past weeks. each one to a CEO or CMO of my biggest accounts. People who trusted me, who'd built their success on my strategies, who knew my worth beyond any corporate hierarchy. My finger hovered over send. Once I did this, there was no going back. But then I remembered his hand on my hip, his texts about my clothing, the smirk as he called me oversensitive. I didn't hit send. Not yet. First, I had calls to make. If I was going to burn down Craig Dawson's kingdom, I needed to make sure I had somewhere for my clients to land, and I knew exactly where to start. The first week of my administrative leave was the darkest. I'd sit in my Capitol Hill apartment, staring at LinkedIn notifications from former colleagues who'd suddenly gone silent. 8 years of relationships evaporated overnight. But rage has a way of crystallizing into purpose, and by day 7, I had a plan. My first call was to Sandra Morrison, CMO of Horizon Energy. We'd worked together for 5 years, built their entire renewable campaign from scratch. She answered on the second ring. "Natalie, I heard you were taking some time off. Everything okay?" "Sandra, I need to be honest with you," I said, choosing my words carefully. "I'm no longer with Ellison and Burke. The circumstances weren't ideal." Silence. Then, "Craig?" That single word told me everything. "You knew?" "We all knew. The way he looked at you during presentations, those private strategy sessions he insisted on. We stayed because of you, Natalie, not the firm." By the end of that call, I had my first ally. Sandra couldn't officially commit to anything, contracts were contracts, but she mentioned their agreement was up for renewal in 6 weeks. "Funny timing," she'd said. Over the next 3 weeks, I orchestrated a delicate dance, coffee meetings in discreet downtown cafes, catching up with old contacts, never explicitly soliciting business that would violate my non-compete, but planting seeds. Marcus Webb from Veralux Beverages met me at Union Station. "Heard E&B put you on leave," he said over artisanal coffee. "Their loss. You transformed our brand." "I'm exploring options," I replied carefully, taking time to consider where I can make the most impact. "Well, when you figure that out, let me know. Our contract renewal is coming up, and frankly, without you there..." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Jennifer Reeves, CEO of Redline Collective, called me directly. Redline was the hungry new firm everyone watched. Agile, innovative, everything Ellison and Burke pretended to be. "I heard you might be available," she said. "I also heard why. We don't tolerate that shit here. Natalie, what would it take to bring you over?" "I can't actively solicit my former clients," I said carefully. "Of course not. But if they happen to independently decide to switch firms after their contracts expire, and you happen to be here to service them." Her smile was audible through the phone. We met at her office in Lodo, all exposed brick and natural light, the opposite of E&B's corporate sterility. Jennifer was everything Craig wasn't, brilliant, ethical, and actually interested in my ideas rather than my appearance. "Here's what I propose," she said. "Director of Strategic Accounts. Full autonomy. And if certain clients happen to follow you here, well, that's the free market." I spent hours reviewing my former clients' contracts. Horizon Energy, renewal in 5 weeks. Veralux, 6 weeks. Lumiskin, 4 weeks. The timing was almost poetic. 9 contracts, all expiring within a 2-week window. Craig had been so focused on controlling me, he'd forgotten to lock down the actual business. My laptop became command central. Encrypted messages, careful documentation, strategic planning. I created detailed transition plans for each client, showing how Redline could deliver everything E&B promised but failed to execute. Not solicitation, just preparation for possibilities. 3 weeks into my leave, I got a text from Maria, my former assistant. "Craig's bragging about getting rid of you, says you're too emotional for business. Also, he's been reassigning your accounts to junior staff." Junior staff. After I'd spent years building those relationships, the disrespect burned, But it also revealed his weakness. He assumed my clients were attached to the firm, not to me. I accepted Jennifer's offer that night. Start date, 5 weeks out. Just as the contracts started expiring, my final preparation was personal. I drafted a LinkedIn post, saving it in my drafts. Excited to announce my new role as Director of Strategic Accounts at Redline Collective. After 8 incredible years at Ellison & Burke, I'm ready for an environment that values both performance and principles. To my clients who've become partners and friends, I look forward to continuing our journey together, wherever that may lead. Sometimes the greatest opportunities come from the most challenging circumstances. New beginnings. Authentic leadership. I stared at the draft. Knowing what it would signal to everyone who mattered, Craig thought he'd exiled me. He had no idea he'd just given me the freedom to architect his downfall. Tomorrow, the contracts would start expiring. Tomorrow, 9 CEOs would receive calls from their new account teams at E&B, junior staff who didn't understand their business, their values, their vision. Tomorrow, those same CEOs would remember why they'd really been paying those premium fees all along. It wasn't about Ellison & Burke, it had always been about me. The first sign of trouble came through Maria, still my eyes inside E&B. Craig's losing it, she texted. Horizon Energy canceled their renewal meeting, he's screaming at juniors. I kept my expression neutral, sitting in my new office at Redline. 3 clients had already scheduled exploratory meetings with us, all independently. Of course, my non-compete prevented active solicitation, but it couldn't stop them from seeking better options. Then E&B's counterattack began. Ms. Rhodes, this is Bradley Stern from Stern & Associates, representing Ellison & Burke. The call came during my second week at Redline. We've noticed suspicious patterns regarding client departures. We're prepared to pursue legal action for violation of your non-compete agreement. I haven't contacted a single client, I said truthfully. If they're choosing to explore other options, perhaps you should examine why. We have IT logs showing unusual access patterns before your departure, downloads, client lists. My blood chilled, but I kept my voice steady. Everything I accessed was within my normal duties. I'm happy to discuss this with my attorney present. The intimidation escalated. A private investigator appeared at my apartment building, asking neighbors about my activities. My LinkedIn profile was mysteriously flagged for suspicious activity. Former colleagues messaged me, warning that Craig was spreading rumors about my mental stability, substance abuse, even suggesting I'd had inappropriate relationships with clients. He's telling everyone you had a breakdown, Maria reported. Says you're delusional, that the harassment claims were fantasies. Some people believe him. But Craig's desperation revealed his fear. Veralux had officially declined to renew. Lumiskin was evaluating options. One by one, the dominoes I'd carefully positioned began to wobble. The crisis meeting happened on a Thursday. Through Maria, I learned that Craig had summoned all senior account managers, demanding they lock down remaining clients. He'd even flown in from corporate headquarters, sensing blood in the water. Find out what that bitch is offering, Craig had reportedly said, forgetting his careful professionalism. Double it. Triple it if necessary. But he'd misunderstood the game entirely. It wasn't about money. It had never been about money. That evening, I met Sandra Morrison at a wine bar in Rhino. Technically just 2 professionals catching up. Nothing inappropriate about that. Craig called me personally, she said, swirling her Malbec. Offered a 30% discount to stay. Then he made a mistake. What kind of mistake? He suggested you were unstable, said your condition made you unreliable, even hinted at substance abuse. Her eyes hardened. I've worked with you for 5 years, Natalie. I know exactly who you are, and now I know exactly who he is. Similar stories trickled in. Craig's desperation had led to tactical errors, insulting me to clients who respected me, making promises E&B couldn't keep, assigning accounts to people who didn't understand the business. His campaign to discredit me only highlighted why clients had stayed for the expertise he'd driven away. But the pressure intensified. E&B's lawyers sent cease and desist letters to Redline. They subpoenaed my personal emails. Craig even contacted my mother, spinning stories about my breakdown, trying to build a narrative of instability. "They're watching your every move," my lawyer warned. "One wrong step, one provable solicitation, and they'll bury you in litigation." I lived under a microscope, every coffee meeting photographed, every LinkedIn connection scrutinized. The stress was crushing, exactly what Craig intended. He wanted me to crack, to make a mistake, to prove his narrative true. Late one night, exhausted and demoralized, I nearly gave up. Sitting in my dark apartment, laptop glowing with legal threats and character assassinations, I wondered if fighting back was worth it. Craig had the institution behind him. I had only the truth. Then I found an email in my personal account, sent weeks earlier but buried in spam. From Ashley Novak, a junior account manager who'd left E&B last year. "Natalie, I heard what happened. It happened to me too. Craig, HR buried it. I have documents, recordings, everything. There are 5 of us now. We've been waiting for someone brave enough to go public. Are you?" 5 others. 5 women who'd suffered in silence, driven out while Craig climbed higher. My hands shook as I read their stories, each one a variation of mine. The touching, the comments, the retaliation, the institutional protection. I forwarded everything to my lawyer with one word: ammunition. The next morning, I walked into Redline with renewed purpose. Craig thought he was hunting me, but he'd just exposed himself. Every threatening letter, every smear campaign, every desperate client call, he was creating evidence of retaliation, proving my original complaint. Jennifer noticed the change. "You look different, determined." "The contracts expire next week," I said. "All 9 of them. Craig's about to learn what happens when you declare war on someone with nothing left to lose." She smiled. "And everything to gain. Whatever happens, we're ready." I nodded, thinking of Ashley's email, of 5 women waiting for justice, of clients trapped between loyalty and corporate dysfunction. Craig had escalated this into war. He had no idea I'd already won. Monday, April 15th, 8:47 a.m., I published the LinkedIn post I'd held in drafts for weeks. Excited to announce my new role as Director of Strategic Accounts at Redline Collective. After 8 incredible years at Ellison & Burke, I'm ready for an environment that values both performance and principles. To my clients who've become partners and friends, I look forward to continuing our journey together, wherever that may lead. Sometimes the greatest opportunities come from the most challenging circumstances. New beginnings. Authentic leadership. By 9:15 a.m., my phone exploded, texts, calls, LinkedIn notifications, a digital avalanche. But the ones that mattered came through email, stamped with corporate letterheads. 9:23 a.m. Dear Ellison & Burke, Horizon Energy has elected not to renew our communications contract, effective immediately. We thank you for your years of service. Sandra Morrison. CMO. 9:41 a.m. Notice of contract non-renewal. Veralux Beverages will be pursuing other agency partnerships moving forward. Marcus Webb, VP Marketing. 10:00 News 02 a.m. RE, account transition. Lumiskin will not be extending our current agreement with E&B. Rachel Liu, CEO. I watched from my Redline office as the notifications rolled in. Trinity Air, Capital Logistics, ZenBody, Econova, Prism Analytics, Atlas Motors. 9 emails. 9 contract cancellations. 42% of E&B's revenue gone in under 90 minutes. Maria's text came at 10:30 a.m. DEFCON 1, Craig just threw a laptop against the wall. CEO's here, board members arriving. They're in full panic mode. But I wasn't done. At 11:00 a.m., Phase 2 launched. Ashley Novak and the 5 other women who'd contacted me had agreed to go public. We'd coordinated with a journalist from the Denver Business Journal who'd been investigating workplace harassment in the communications industry. The article went live at 11:15 a.m. Pattern of harassment alleged at prominent Denver communications firm. 6 women come forward against senior executive. The article was devastating: names, dates, corroborating documents. Craig Dawson featured prominently. But the piece exposed a cultural rot that went straight to the top. HR's complicity, leadership's willful blindness, the systematic destruction of women who spoke up. My phone rang. Jennifer Reeves. Natalie, I just got 9 calls in 30 minutes. They all want meetings. Today. Schedule them, I said. But Jennifer, they come to us. We don't go to them. By noon, EB Toxic was trending locally on Twitter. Former employees shared their stories. Clients expressed concern about their association with the firm. The Denver Ad Club released a statement about maintaining professional standards in our industry. 1 PM brought the inevitable. Bradley Stern, E&B's attack dog lawyer, called Jennifer directly. Your employee has orchestrated a criminal conspiracy to destroy our business. We will sue her into bankruptcy. We will sue Redline into non-existence. Jennifer's response was perfect. Mr. Stern, I'm looking at 9 signed letters of intent from clients who've independently chosen to work with us. I'm also looking at a Business Journal article documenting years of harassment at your firm. If you'd like to discuss criminal conspiracies, I suggest you start internally. But the masterstroke came at 2 p.m. I'd saved one final piece of leverage, a group email Craig had sent 2 years prior, which I'd managed to document before my access was cut. In it, he explicitly discussed managing out a pregnant account manager because clients don't want to look at that. Pure discrimination, in writing, sent to 12 senior staff members. I didn't leak it. I didn't need to. I simply had my lawyer forward it to E&B's board with a simple note. This evidence will be part of our countersuit for retaliation and defamation, unless a mutual resolution can be reached. 3:30 p.m. The E&B board called an emergency meeting. 4:15 p.m. Craig Dawson was placed on immediate administrative leave. 4:45 p.m. E&B released a statement about taking all allegations seriously and conducting a thorough investigation. 5 p.m. I sat with my 9 clients, now Redline clients, for our first official strategy session. Sandra Morrison raised a champagne glass. To Natalie Rhodes, she said, who reminded us that integrity isn't just a corporate value, it's a personal choice. As we toasted, my phone buzzed with a CNN business alert. Ellison & Burke stock plummets 30% following mass client exodus, harassment allegations. Craig had thought power meant control. He'd thought silence could be purchased with intimidation. He'd thought the system that protected him was invincible. He'd thought wrong. That night, I finally allowed myself to feel the weight of what had happened, not just the victory, but the cost. The months of documentation, of swallowing rage, of careful planning, the character assassination, the legal threats, the isolation. But as I looked at my new office, at the client contracts spreading across my desk, at the messages from women thanking me for speaking up, I knew every moment had been worth it. Craig Dawson had tried to destroy me. Instead, he'd forged me into the weapon of his own destruction. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. The aftermath unfolded like dominoes in an earthquake. Tuesday morning, E&B's stock price continued its free fall, dropping another 18% at market open. The board had called an all-hands meeting for 10 a.m., but by 9:30, the exodus had begun. Senior talent fled like rats from a sinking ship, their LinkedIn updates telling the story. Exploring new opportunities. Open to connections. Seeking firms with strong values. Maria sent me regular updates from inside the chaos. 2 more VPs just resigned. Clients are calling nonstop, demanding explanations. Craig's office is sealed off. Security won't let him back in the building. By Wednesday, the investigative firm hired by the board had interviewed 37 employees. The stories that emerged painted a picture far worse than even I had known. Craig wasn't an anomaly. He was a symptom. The toxic culture ran deep, protected by HR policies designed to silence rather than solve. The business press smelled blood, Forbes, Fortune, Business Insider, all ran pieces on E&B's spectacular implosion. How to lose $50 million in market value in 48 hours became required reading in business schools within the month. Thursday brought Craig's official termination. No golden parachute, no graceful exit. The board's statement was clinical. Following a thorough investigation, Craig Dawson's employment has been terminated for cause, effective immediately. Ellison & Burke is committed to rebuilding a culture of respect and professionalism. But termination wasn't enough for Craig. His reputation was radioactive. Executive recruiters wouldn't return his calls. His country club membership was quietly not renewed. The speaking engagement at Denver Business Summit? Canceled. He went from industry leader to industry pariah in 4 days. I heard through the grapevine that he'd tried to spin the story, claiming he was a victim of a vindictive employee's conspiracy. But the evidence was overwhelming. 6 women's testimonies, documented patterns, his own emails and messages. Even his allies couldn't defend the indefensible. The real devastation came Friday, when 3 more major clients jumped ship. Not mine. These were accounts Craig had personally managed, firms that discovered their trusted advisor was a predator. The total revenue loss hit 53%. E&B went from industry leader to cautionary tale in a single week. Patricia Burnham, the HR head who'd protected Craig, resigned to pursue other interests. Thomas from legal followed suit. The entire leadership structure that had enabled years of harassment crumbled under public scrutiny and board pressure. Meanwhile, at Redline, we were building something different. The 9 clients who'd followed me weren't just business. They became partners in creating a better agency model. We implemented policies E&B had only pretended to have: genuine protection for whistleblowers, third-party harassment reporting, leadership accountability that meant something. A week after the implosion, I received an unexpected call. Robert Ellison himself, the founding partner who'd built the agency 40 years ago. Ms. Rhodes. His voice was tired, defeated. I wanted to apologize personally. I built this firm on principles of excellence and integrity. Somewhere along the way, we lost that. You tried to tell us, and we failed you. Your apology doesn't undo the damage, I said. No, it doesn't. But I wanted you to know that we're implementing every recommendation from the investigation. We're rebuilding from the ground up. And he paused. We're establishing a fund for women who were pushed out or silenced. It won't fix the past, but perhaps it can help with the future. It was more than I'd expected, though far less than deserved. 3 weeks after the exodus, E&B announced a strategic restructuring. Translation: they were gutting half their workforce to stay afloat. The Denver office, once their crown jewel, shuttered 2 floors. The remaining employees worked in a ghost town of empty desks and darker memories. Craig himself became a living cautionary tale. Last I heard, he was working as an independent consultant, which everyone knew meant unemployable. His wife filed for divorce after the full extent of his behavior became public. His professional network evaporated. The man who'd wielded power like a weapon found himself powerless. But the real victory wasn't in Craig's fall. It was in what rose from the ashes. The 6 women who'd come forward with me started a support network for others facing workplace harassment. 2 of them joined agencies that committed to real change. Ashley Novak started her own firm, building the culture she'd been denied. And me? I stood in my Redline office, looking out at the Denver skyline, managing accounts worth more than I'd ever dreamed. My clients hadn't just followed me. They'd invested in a vision of what business could be when talent was valued over toxicity, when speaking truth was rewarded rather than punished. Craig Dawson had thought he could destroy me with institutional power. Instead, he'd taught me that institutions are only as strong as the people who prop them up. Remove the right supports, and even the mightiest towers fall. He'd lost everything: career, reputation, respect, power. All because he couldn't conceive of a world where a woman he'd tried to break could break him instead. 6 months later, I stood before a packed auditorium at the Denver Business Summit, the same speaking engagement Craig had lost. The title of my presentation: The Cost of Silence, Building Ethical Leadership from the Ashes. They say success is the best revenge, I began, looking out at hundreds of faces. But I'm here to tell you that justice is better. Success without justice is just perpetuating the same broken systems that protect predators and punish truth-tellers. In the audience, I spotted Sandra Morrison, Marcus Webb, and my other clients who'd taken the leap with me. But more importantly, I saw young professionals, women and men, hungry for change, tired of accepting toxicity as the price of ambition. Redline Collective had grown from 12 employees to 47. We'd won 3 industry awards for innovative campaigns. But the achievement I was proudest of was our culture score: 97% employee satisfaction. We'd proven that excellence and ethics weren't mutually exclusive. Ellison & Burke still exists, I continued. They've rebranded, restructured, promised change. Maybe they'll deliver on those promises. But their transformation came at a price: hundreds of millions in lost revenue, careers destroyed, lives derailed. All because they chose to protect one predator instead of listening to 6 women. After my speech, a young woman approached me, tears in her eyes. I'm dealing with something similar at my firm. I've been documenting everything, but I'm terrified. I handed her my card. You're not alone, and you're stronger than you know. That became my new mission. Yes, I ran accounts worth millions. Yes, I'd achieved professional success beyond my dreams. But the real work happened in quiet conversations, in mentoring sessions, in building networks where silence wasn't the price of success. Craig Dawson? He became a footnote, a cautionary tale whispered at industry events. I heard he'd moved to Phoenix, trying to restart where his reputation hadn't followed. But the internet has a long memory, and his name would forever be linked to E&B's spectacular fall. Sometimes I wondered if he ever reflected on how it all went wrong. Did he lie awake thinking about that morning when he could have simply apologized, acknowledged wrongdoing, changed his behavior? Did he realize that his need to control, to dominate, had cost him everything? But mostly, I didn't think about Craig at all. I was too busy building the career and the industry I'd always deserved. My office at Redline had a wall of photos now, not awards or certificates, but pictures from client celebrations, team victories, moments of genuine joy in our work. In the center hung a framed quote from Maya Angelou: "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." I'd told my story. More importantly, I'd helped others tell theirs. The phone rang. Another potential client who'd heard about our approach, our values, our results. As I picked up, I caught my reflection in the window. The woman staring back wasn't the same one who'd sat in Craig's office, recording his harassment while dying inside. This woman had scars, yes, but she turned them into armor. Redline Collective, Natalie Rhodes speaking. Ms. Rhodes, I'm calling because we need an agency that understands integrity isn't just a buzzword. I smiled, settling into my chair. Then let's talk about what real integrity looks like. Craig Dawson had tried to teach me about power, how to wield it, how to submit to it, how to fear it. Instead, he taught me something far more valuable: that real power comes from truth. And truth, once spoken, can bring down empires. He thought he was untouchable. He thought the system would always protect him. He thought I was just another woman he could intimidate into silence. He thought wrong. And that's the thing about bullies who mistake fear for respect, control for leadership, silence for consent. They never see the revolution coming until it's already won. My name is Natalie Rhodes. I was harassed, silenced, and discarded by a man who thought he owned my future. Instead, I took his present and made it my foundation for something better. Not through revenge, but through revelation. Not by destroying him, but by revealing what he'd always been. And in the end, that was enough to watch his world burn while I built mine from the ashes. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your own experiences and perspectives matter. And this community grows stronger when we share them together.